When men use the term barely legal, they're not even describing physical attraction. They are describing proximity to illegality. It's a power dynamic. What turns them on isn't attraction, it's how close it is to the line of what society allows, which means the real fantasy is a cross to the other side of the line. Hi my loves, welcome back to the Brain and Beauty Club. If you're new here, my name is Kelly, and on here we bring nuance back to womanhood. Today we're going to continue our conversation around the idea that to be a woman is to perform, and more specifically we will uncover why the ideal woman was never a woman, but she was in fact a girl. But before we get into it, I need you to hit the like and subscribe button so that more people can join our conversation. Now that's out of the way, let's get into it. I have already talked about how we have all been conditioned from a young age to care deeply about the way that we look, to be cute, to be agreeable, to be a good girl. But what I didn't realize at the time was how early we have also been conditioned to please men, to smexualise ourselves, and to cater to the male gaze. And it's actually infuriating now that I have made that connection. And I'm really glad that more people are talking about it now, because it's definitely not talked about enough. Now that I'm thinking back, we were all wearing little hot pants when we were literal tweens. We aspired to be Victoria's Secret models. We wore push-up bras and thongs. We wore pants that had the word juicy written across our butt. Like, what? Now that we know these brands had connections to the biggest PDF known in humanity, it's not surprising. This so-called girlhood was made up by disgusting men to make us better victims, to make us better suited to their gaze, to make us eager to please men and stay silent when we are violated. And the thing is, the groomings and all the horrendous things didn't just happen on the island, it happened everywhere. Brooke Shields was only 9 years old when she was called by a British tabloid the non-adult who drives men crazy. She was 11 when she appeared in scenes with no clothes on in Pretty Baby, where she played a non-adult worker and had a kissing scene with her then 29 years old co-star. Britney Spears was only 16 when she released her single Baby One More Time, where she danced provocatively in school uniform. Emma Watson has also been very vocal about being sexualized by the media since she was 14. This didn't just happen in the West. On the other side of the world, many girl idols in the K-pop industries are under the age of 18 when they first debut. As a culture, we have been conditioned to be appealing to men as non-adults, and it's sick. The sexualization of young girls is nothing new. In ancient Rome, the legal age for marriage was 12, with many girls married between the ages of 12 to 15. Similarly, in ancient Greece, girls were often married between the age of 14 to 16, typically to older men. What a surprise. One notable example was Lady Margaret Beaufort. She married her first significant husband, Edmund Tudor, when she was only 12 years old, and Edmund at the time was around 22 or 23. Although the minimum age of marriage at the time was 12, it was encouraged for the couples to wait until the young wife reaches the age of 14 before consummating the marriage, so that her body has more time to develop and so that bearing child would be less risky. But what did Edmund do? He consummated the marriage anyway. So Lady Margaret Beaufort was pregnant when she was just 12 years old, and she gave birth to her son, who later became King Henry VII when she was just 13. The birth was so traumatic that she later wrote to her own granddaughters advising them to not marry too early because she didn't want them to go through what she had to go through. I guess you can say that things were a little different back in the days where life expectancy was shorter, so people got married earlier. Young girls, especially amongst the nobility and aristocracy, were often married by their family to older men to consolidate power and form alliances. But the underlying message is still the same, and that is women, especially young girls, were not viewed as their own person, but rather objects and vessels for others' desires and ambitions. There's also long been this purity culture across both Western and Eastern history history, whereby the more inexperienced the girl is, the better. Not just inexperience in sex, but also inexperience in life. Fast forward to today, we now have laws that say pedophilia is bad, is not allowed, is illegal. But the fascination with young women never really went away. Men still say that they prefer younger women. Their favorite term is barely legal because apparently it's just biology. When men use the term barely legal, they're not even describing physical attraction. They are describing proximity to illegality. It's a power dynamic. Legal in this context means the minimum age that the society will allow. And the fact that barely legal is being used as a marker for desirability rather than, let's say, personhood or even physical attraction tells us that this is about how much they can get away with. What turns them on isn't attraction, it's how close it is to the line of what society allows, which means the real fantasy is a cross to the other side of the line. But of course they won't say that, so they say it's just their natural instinct to like younger women. They can't help it. Well, you know what that natural instinct is? It's the instinct to control. Non-adults and barely legal adults are arguably way more easier to control than full-grown women. They are more malleable, they are more easily impressed, and they are more eager to please. They are less likely to question authority. Compare that to full-grown women. We realize that we have been conditioned to please men this whole time. We start to have our own voice and our own opinion. We're less obedient than we were when we were younger. It's much harder to control women who have their own thoughts, their own money, their own career, their own sense of self-worth. On top of this instinct to control, there is also this fantasy to corrupt, to be the one who showed them the world. And in order to corrupt something, they kind of need to be innocent to begin with, right? And in order to be the one who showed them the world, it's so much easier if they haven't seen much of the world to begin with, so that they're more easily impressed. And I'm sure that every woman knows or knows of some older guy who's tried to impress us with their shitty life and their shitty personality when we were younger. And of course they had to target younger women because our frontal lobes haven't developed yet. It's much easier to impress a younger, naive woman than it is to impress a full-grown woman. So yeah, is it just biology that men happen to prefer younger girls? I think not. By now, we know that we have been conditioned to put men first, to cater to the male gaze, to seek their approvals and validations. But that doesn't just magically go away when we enter adulthood. I mean, just look at the beauty standards. Be skinny, be petite, be hairless, smooth skin. These are all aesthetics rooted in non-adulthood, not womanhood. Even when we are adults, they still want us to look and behave like non-adults as much as possible. They don't have to force us to cater to the male gaze or coerce us like they had to back in the days, because under modern patriarchy, we have been given this false sense of free will, that we chose this ourselves, that we chose to wear pleated miniskirts, that we chose to lose weight, that we chose to spend thousands of dollars to laser all of our hair off. When in reality, we have been conditioned to behave and be a certain way since a young age. There is no need for external forces to police us when we are policing ourselves and each other, when we are doing the dirty works to ourselves. We still get high from male validation whether we want to admit it or not, and we've already talked about this in previous videos. So where exactly do we go from here? And to be really completely honest with you, I don't know if there is a clean and clear-cut way out of this, but I guess we can start by understanding exactly what's been done to us and how much of our beliefs are shaped by people who wanted us to become the perfect prey. I see that more and more people are talking about decentering men, which is great, but I think it's also important for us to realize that we're not just decentering men. We are decentering from a world where the ideal woman was never a woman, but she was, in fact, a girl. And that's all I have for you today. Remember, softness isn't about shrinking. You can be delicate in your presence and powerful in your mind. I will see you here next Wednesday. Bye.